How's everything with you?
Yeah, doing good, man. Doing good. Everything
Yeah.
is good. Business is good. Busy.
What
Family's
was
good. Everybody, how about you?
Yeah, everything's same old, just always working. Now, I guess when we talk about busy, working, we're seeing different things, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about what you're seeing.
Oh, I got a call coming in. Get rid of that. Um, yeah, so it's just been really busy, but having to come up with solutions, really, which is what we've always done. But as things change, obviously we have to adapt. Just trying to come up with a solution and get people to be as aggressive as possible, within their comfort levels. We're really just exploring all avenues as far as trying to get people to come in, non-contingent, whether that's putting a little bit less money down so they don't have to be contingent on the sale of their house, using things like non-occupant co-borrowers, just getting really creative that way. Even sometimes, taking out, loans against retirement accounts, even though we know they'll be paid back right away once the home sale goes through. But obviously, we can say we're, doing something, and then if their buyer of their property loses their job at the last minute, then there's nothing you can really do about that. So we're just trying to get people to be as non-contingent as possible, get their offers accepted if they are a current homeowner. It's a little easier for the first time buyer because they have a little bit more flexibility if someone is trying to sell their home and find another one. So really just having a lot of those kind of conversations and trying to get position people to get their offers accepted, making calls to listing agents. I've won a few deals over the last week or so, just by making that call and kind of talking through the situation with the listing agents, talking through appraisals. Do we have money to cover shorts? Can we use mortgage insurance to cover that gap if necessary? So just being really creative to, talk people through things, educate them, and, this way they can, shop confidently and get their offers accepted. So really just trying to provide as much value as possible as things are changing, and staying on top of it, really. So
Yeah, I hear a lot of
that's what's
solution
going on
finding
on
in
our end.
there. Yeah, a lot of creative
Yeah, yeah,
solution finding on that end, huh?
that's what we do. That's what we
Well,
do. We try
you
to,
mentioned the word appraisals. Are you seeing that there's issues with appraisals, or they're getting
no,
by?
I really haven't had too many issues with appraisals. We have a really good panel of appraisers that are all regionalized. So that this way we're getting someone that's familiar with the market who's going out to the property. That Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac actually got rid of the desktop appraisals, so now they're doing all full appraisals now, unless we get an appraisal waiver on our end through Fannie or Freddie. But we really do have an issue. If there is a property in question, we can actually call the appraisal management company and have them run comps and give us a range of value. They're not going to give us an exact value, but just a range to kind of, get people a little bit more comfortable with things. But yeah, we do really hardly have issues with appraisals, but it is a concern. So it's something that you need to talk people through. The listing agent obviously always has their concern that the property is going to appraise, and the buyer has a concern as well if they're having to put their best foot forward and agreeing to pay the difference if it does come in short. But even on properties that the value did come in short, we've had a pretty good track record of providing comps to the appraiser and asking for reconsideration. So we're usually pretty successful with that, as long as the comps are pretty close. And
Yeah,
then they can kind of add back in time and things like that. So
and on the buying end, we're seeing a lot of the, I guess, the sales that were considered crazy or high. Yeah, they're starting to close right now. So those are what you call very good comparables to use. So
right.
I think the effect is that we're going to have less issues with appraisals moving forward, because all these very high comparables are now closing. And those numbers are going to be pretty consistent. We're seeing still some craziness on the market, in part partly due to interest rates. They're still very, very low. They actually dipped below
Yep.
this past week, right? They're back in the twos.
Well, they did, and then the Fed spoke yesterday, and then it kind of went the other direction. And then this morning, Treasuries kind of made a comeback to pre before the Fed spoke, and MBS they always lag behind a little bit. So we'll see how that works out by the end of the week. Or, usually Fridays aren't really a good gauge because, investors are selling off bonds and trying to take their profits for the week. So usually Monday and Friday isn't really necessarily a great gauge, but we'll see, where we are, early next week. But yeah, they're still fluctuating right around low twos, high twos, low threes, right in that range, depending on what you're putting down and credit and things like that. But yeah, we're right in that ballpark.
So let's say
So
forecasting ahead, right? Theoretically, interest rates
yeah,
do go up. Let's just say
theoretically, we are going to be in a rising interest rate environment, right? I mean, the only way for the Fed to fight inflation is to raise interest rates. So, I mean, that's the reality of it, right? So even though maybe, home prices are higher, if the Fed does start raising rates and maybe there is a little bit of a correction and maybe the home prices come down a hair. I don't really seeing it much because there's still way too many people out there shopping. I don't really see it going the other way, but at least not for now. There's 6 million available jobs right now, so people are starting to get back to work, but the demand is certainly there. So that seems like a good economic outlook, but we also have to look at the money we've been printing and how inflationary that is. And at some point, the Fed is not going to be able to be as accommodative as they can, and they're going to need to fight that inflation. And the only way to do that is to make credit less available, right? So that means higher interest rates. So right now is a really good time, besides the 8-month period that we had through the virus where it was the lowest it's ever been. This is pretty much it. So we definitely want to act as soon as possible if we're ready. Obviously, it's not you should buy a house if you're not ready, but if you are ready, now's the time.
I was gonna go say something along those lines. Even if theoretically interest rates went up 3.5, 3.75, they went up. There's so much demand. There's so much pent up demand.
Right.
The demand's not going anywhere, and there's so much more demand than there is supply, and we're seeing a supply increases, but that's deceiving. So you got to be careful with that. There's so much demand out there that even if interest rates do go up, they have to go up by a lot to affect, I think, where the market prices are, where the market value is today, because people are still willing to pay the price. So you might not get 20 offers, but if you still get 5 offers, it's still going to be very competitive, and the buyers out there are still going to be willing to pay the price, as far as I can see. So it has to go up significantly, like into the 4s maybe, and then we'll talk about maybe price adjustments. But right now, people are paying the prices of today.
I don't foresee it. There's a lot of conversations with people that are, well, I'm going to wait until the market cools off a little bit, and it's going to be to time them. Listen, it's always a good time to buy a house if you're going to be there for at least 2 to 5 years, right? Timing the market is not the way to do things, right? You're gonna lose out on the appreciation and the amortization of that loan, and so you're just really throwing money out the window with the rent and increasing your tax liabilities. So if home ownership is in the cards for you in the future and you're ready now, you should definitely move forward.
Yeah, I think just forecasting ahead, we're going to see more of the same through the end of the year, likely into next year as well. Don't expect too many things to change as far as the competition, the price points. The inventory levels might change, but that's only because from what I'm seeing from an agent standpoint, yes, I'm seeing some inventory levels even double, going from 10 to 20, from 15 to 30. Yet it's deceiving because those are just overpriced properties. So there's sellers and listing agents. Just, at this point, they're just throwing a number out there for overpricing things, even for today's market. And then the buyers have this sixth sense to understand that, yes, they're asking for too much money. Let's just go next. And that's why we're seeing an increase in supply. So eventually they might consider coming back to reality. Yet even in today's market, we still have those two products. We have the price correctly and the overprice. So you just got to be careful from a buyer.
Yeah, and look, as we get towards the end of the year, you're going to have even more demand, right? Because all those people that were maybe, salary position, you're out of work a couple of months, you go back to work, your salary, we take it, divide by 12, that's your income. Someone who's a fluctuating income where they're hourly and, one week they're 32, the next they're 40, and it's all over the place. When they were out of work that time, we have to average out that income. So as the year goes on and they're back to work for so many months, their averages come up, which, enables them to qualify again. So we're going to have even more demand coming into the end of the year, right? So, which is going to, also drive up prices.
Let's talk about that for a second. What if somebody had a gap in their employment? How does that affect them? Can they still obtain a mortgage?
Yeah, so it depends. We're going to average that income. Fannie and Freddie will not take the being out for COVID as an excuse, right? So they will make us average out that income, right? So if we're looking at a 24-month period and you have 15 months of income, we're taking that, and we're averaging it over that time period. Not necessarily 24. That's a pretty wide range. They're a little bit more conservative than that, but just to kind of overestimate, it does affect them, right? So, as they come back to work and as they, keep going on into the year and that year to date keeps building up and their averages come up, they can now come back, they can come back into the market, right? So, salary position's pretty simple. It depends also on how long they've been out of work too, how long that gap has been, if it's more than 6 months, they want to see you back to work for 6 months. So really, if you're out for a couple months, they don't necessarily, there's really not a time constraint there, but if you were out for a good portion of time, you may need to be back to work for a certain time even to qualify. So it is case by case, and really depending on the type of job, the type of income, whether that's hourly or commission or, things like that. The underwriters are going to look at those things differently. I just pre-approved the gentleman who, went to school. He's hourly, but he's a nurse. And he, right out of school into that job, he had a 2-year work history because he was working during school, and they're allowing me to average his income over the time period that he's got out of school and went to work, which has only been 9 months or so. So it really depends on the specific client and the type of income that they do have, and we need to look at that holistically. So it's really important to making sure that you're having someone that really knows what they're doing, pre-approve somebody, especially now, because there are so many variables.
What happens if they change jobs? How does that affect the everything?
It's okay to change jobs. It doesn't necessarily need to be even in the same line of work. It just is it the same type of pay as far as you can't go from a salary into a commission job and then you're not going to be able to use it that way, right? So but if you went from a commission job to a salary, then that's a different story, right? So really it's very specific to that person's employment and the type of income that they do have.
What about those buyers that come in and they have very low reserves, let's say? So they have their work history, they can get pre-approved, but they're coming in with the minimum down payment, that 3 to 3.5%.
Yeah. So actually,
how do you guide them?
So HUD actually put in a guideline for any government loan that they need to have a minimum of 2 months reserves no matter what. So it doesn't necessarily have to be liquid. It can be in a retirement vehicle, 401k, an IRA, things like that. You can use those for reserves. So we're digging a little deeper, right? We're digging a lot deeper into people's finances, which helps us advise them better. And really, the mortgage and the property, it shouldn't just be looked at as one single thing, right? It's a piece of the portfolio, right? So you have to look at people's portfolio holistically to advise them properly. So yeah, I mean, reserves are not always, they're not required on a conventional mortgage if it's a single family primary residence, but yes, if we're using rental income and things like that, then they're going to be looking for reserves for sure.
So with the different types of loans, let's compare FHA to conventional. You're probably seeing it often where buyers are looking to strengthen offers, and they say they ask you the question, is it possible to go conventional? How do you get creative with those type of situations?
Yeah, sometimes, sometimes it can be having to maybe improve the credit a little bit, right? Because there's a little more flexibility on credit with government insured loans. Sometimes it's, maybe possibly getting a co-borrower, a gift from a family member if they maybe need to put a little bit more down, things like that. So really just, exhausting all avenues to try to get them in a good position. Um, but yeah, really that's kind of the way to do it.
Yeah, I'll add, I mean, sometimes there's just not the ability to shift them over from FHA to conventional. So to strengthen
Yeah.
the offers on our end, we're recommending our buyers to submit their offers with with a clause that states that buyer will address any issues that arise from the appraisal for the FHA loan. So it removes the concern that the listing agent or the seller might have with any additional costs. Many of these homes, especially in our area, they're older homes, 40s and 50s, and a lot of them might have some peeling paint, and they just don't want to deal with it, or they don't know what kind of surprises will come along. So you know, it relieves that concern if they say the buyer will address. So if the buyer is
Yeah.
willing to do that, it does strengthen an offer in some way, shape, or form. In other ways, you can compare it to, well, buyer will be responsible for CCO. That strengthens an offer as well. It's in the same type of thought
Yeah,
process.
so what I'm really seeing a lot of is people just protecting themselves from the environmental and structural issues, and they're not really digging too deep on like loose door handles, right? We're not going to haggle you for we know we made an offer on a property, we know the condition of it. Obviously we're not a trained professional, we're not a home inspector, so we do want to protect ourselves from the environmental and the structural issues. But besides that, we're pretty much waiving our right for inspections for anything that's miscellaneous.
Well, since we're talking about multiple offers and strengthening offers, yes, definitely buyers say they're going to purchase as is the exception of this, and that, or they're going to waive their appraisal contingencies or cap it. Yet, let's talk about the lenders because you're a lender. So, how can a lender strengthen your offer? Does it matter who you work with?
Absolutely does. It absolutely is. And sometimes it just comes down to a conversation, Ron. I'm making every offer I have go in, I'm calling the listing agent. I'm letting them know that the buyer is well qualified. We've done our due diligence. We've reviewed all their financials, that I will keep them in the loop at all the, major milestones when we get the appraisal comes in. Obviously, I'm not going to share the value with them, but just to, give them some information to pass along to their clients so they can operate their business confidently. When the commitment comes in, once we're clear, if any issues arise or we need more time or we can close sooner, right? So, a lot of it just comes down to a conversation and the buyer, the seller, being feeling confident to accept your offer. Just last week, I spoke to the listing agent. She actually put me on a conference call with the homeowner, right? So, and to talk about an appraisal, and then we ended up getting a waiver, so it kind of saved the day anyway. But yeah, so those are a lot of the conversations that we're having, and that's what really helps. But yeah, it can be waiving your appraisal up to a certain point, whether or not, depending on the equity position, as long as there's a 5% equity position once the appraisal comes in, then we can use mortgage insurance to cover that difference. If the client would prefer not to pay it out of pocket, or they just don't have the assets to do so, right? We understand that we're not in a perfect world, and not everyone, can make these things happen, and we have to just, work within that person's comfort levels or even their ability. And so, it's everyone's is specific, but we try to do our best to, provide as much value to that client and the agent as possible.
Yeah, and I heard you say, okay, so you as the lender, you make a phone call, reach out to the listing agent to to communicate that this is a very solid buyer, as well as getting creative with gapping an appraisal issue. Yet, what about getting clients through underwriting? How often does that occur?
As far as like submitting it into underwriting before they find a property?
Yeah, with a TBD
Yeah.
property, we'll say, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, we don't do it with every client. Obviously, we want to make sure that person is serious, right? But if they are a very active and aggressive buyer, we have no problem putting them, into our TBD programming and getting them through underwriting before they find the property. And then at that point, once they have that approval, we just really need to underwrite the property itself, and we just need title work, an appraisal and insurance, and that's pretty much it. So at that point, you can close in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
And also closing quickly, right? So, our back end is very, very robust right now. We are a 30-day closer less without any hiccups on our end. Sometimes even sooner if it's a rush, we can, we have the ability to make a file a priority through our CRM. We could just go in there, click a couple of buttons, and I can move things around. If I know I have one file that's ahead of this one and the closing date's 2 weeks further out, I can swap them, get it in line to get done a little faster. And so we can make those accommodations. And so that certainly does help.
Yeah, it definitely helps me on the buyer agent side for sure. When I have the ability to approach a listing agent and say, "Hey, Mr. or Miss Listing Agent, these buyers, they're already through underwriting. We only have three conditions to obtain a clear to close. That's the appraisal, the title company info, and the homeowner's insurance for the year receipt. When would you like to close?" It does strengthen our offer. It gives us a kind of an edge, as you will. Now,
Right.
let's just say,
Sometimes it's the other way around too. Sometimes the seller needs more time. Sometimes they need more flexibility because they listed their home and they still have to find one, right? So having someone who's a first-time buyer who's on a month-to-month or living at home, sometimes that can be an advantage, right? So
yeah, of course. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of lease backs, use of occupancies right now, just so that those particular sales that don't know where they're going, they can go ahead and close, stay in the property, put the funds in their pocket, and go shop for a home without a sale contingency. That definitely strengthens an offer. So the story, or I guess the market conditions right now, the story of the current market conditions is strength of offer. It's all about strength of offer. That's how we obtain, and that's how we make deals happen daily. So when it comes to lenders, not all lenders are created equal. Some are better to work with than others, right? Let's just put it that way. I'm simplifying. And if I get a Bond Street mortgage pre-approval letter as an agent, what do I know? Well, I know that they're good to go, because when Bond Street says you're good to go, you are good to go. And any other listing agent in the area knows that as well. Now compare that to say ABC Mortgage out of Missouri, and both offers are very comparable. Which offer are you going? I'm going to go with
we're going to take the
the one
local
with the
lender that
stronger
we know.
lender. So yeah, so in essence, what I'm looking to convey here is that yes, who you work with does matter. Your lender does either strengthen or weaken your offer.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so choose who you work with wisely, or you will have to learn the hard way. Yeah,
This is
unfortunately.
true.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can
This is
advise, we
true.
can recommend, we can encourage people, yet we can't make choices for them. So we can only
Right.
trust that they'll take some good advice when it's provided to them. And Bond
Yeah.
Street, from what I know, all the deals that I've done with Bond Street is that they do have a 100% performance rate. They do pull through. They do get to the finish line. They do help the outcome, the accomplishment, the achievement that those clients are looking for happen, and that's always a good thing. So always on my
Yeah.
recommended list.
Unless there's an issue with the property itself, and
Oh yeah,
we've reviewed it, it's going to close, unless
yeah.
that person, has a life-changing event and they lose their job or something like that. But obviously those things are unforeseeable. But in all other instances, we're usually right on top of it.
Just don't buy a jet ski right before closing.
Do not buy a jet ski. I even had a client that was clear to close. Okay, Ron, this happened Monday. Good way to start off your week. They were clear to close. They asked me on Friday, can we buy some furniture? I said, wait until you have the keys in your hand. Please, I know you're anxious. It's a couple of days. Don't do it. What happened? So when they did the walkthrough on Monday, we're at the closing table, the loan funded and everything, and they killed the deal. Because there was water, they did their final walkthrough. There was water in the basement. There was when they first did their home inspection, the basement had been filled with all those people's storage and boxes, and they couldn't really get a good feel for things. And they found some water in the basement. It had luckily for them, it had rained really hard last week and Sunday night, and so they saw the water. Then through further inspection, they found that there was a bunch of paint that was covering up a crack. The place was being sold as that they said that they had drains, and there was no drains, so it was like $11,000 to put in drains, and they ended up killing the deal because the seller didn't want to cooperate and all that. So if they would have bought that furniture on the next property that they're going to see a bunch of properties this weekend, and if one of those will work out, that furniture purchase may have hurt them. So we're constantly having to remind people to be smart throughout the transaction and not do anything outside of the norm, and be as frugal as they can with their money during before closing, and making sure if they are on fluctuating hours, try not to take any days off, or unless there's an emergency. I always tell people, obviously emergencies happen. If you do have a situation, call me. Just last week I had a client who's refinancing actually, and had a death in the family and needed to put some money on a credit card to pay for a funeral, and so we worked it out on what that payment would look like and if it would affect them or not. And so we make sure that the client knows that they can reach out to us for any reason, and just be as transparent as possible so that we can come up with the proper solutions.
You're definitely on my recommended list of advisors, my friend. So
we appreciate it.
Anything else any last thoughts you want to share with our audience before we end the call for today?
Yeah, just let any situation that they want to talk through, we're always here. We're here to empower you and give you as many tools in your toolbox that you can have to strike a chord with people, make some impressions, and provide some good value to your clients, right? So at the end of the day, Keller Williams is Bond Street's client, not necessarily the end user, right? So your agents, you guys are our clients, right? So use us as such.
You are definitely a benefit and advantage and of value to have around. You are an asset to have around. And if you're welcoming us to reach out to you with any questions, concerns, thoughts, issues, anything, then I think that the other agents or whoever's watching should take advantage of it. So, my friend, thank you for joining me. I think we'll end it on that note, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon, maybe in person.
All right, sounds good, Ron. Yeah. Well, we started coming back into the offices now, so hopefully, I just went to the Tenafly, the first in-person meeting on Tuesday, so it was good to and there was 20 or 30 people in the office. It was good to see everybody out and about, and we've been doing some events and things like that, so we'll definitely be running into each other.
We'll see you soon, Steve. Thanks for joining us.
All right, take care, Ron. Have a great day.
You too.